Hello, welcome to our Prepping for Finals video. This is a video from CNMS Advising's Student Success Team, and this is a guide for STEM students to prepare for their final exams. You can use this video if you're not a STEM student, but not all of it might apply to you. But you might still get some great tips. And STEM students, we're going to still give you some tips for classes that are not necessarily math and science related. So, are you ready? You probably understand the concept of a final exam. You might have taken them before if it's not your first semester here at UMBC, but it might still be stressing you out a lot. You know, especially if you've been through it before, it's cumulative. That's just kind of scary. There's a lot of material to review. These classes move quickly and you cover a lot in one semester, especially compared to high school. So if you're still in your first year of college, you're still kind of adjusting to that. That's okay. We are here to help you figure out how to prepare early and well. Those are the two things you need to focus on: prepare early and prepare well. So let's talk about how to start prep early. Set aside about 30 minutes each day for your hardest courses. That might not be every class, maybe just your STEM courses if those are the ones that you're concerned about and you want to do really well in those final exams. So mark time in your calendar and don't skip it. And if you're having a hard time actually committing to it, make a plan of where you're going to do it and when you're going to do it. We're going to talk through the what in a little bit, but the when and the where is very important to actually commit to something and stick to it because it gives you fewer choices in the moment. So consistency is very important here. By starting now, you're going to get a massive return on your investment. That's because when you look at something, you study something, you practice something, you stack a brick. This is a metaphor, obviously. But if you stack a brick one at a time, like one every day, you're going to have a wall built by the time the final exam comes around. You could instead start studying 3 days before the exam and try to build that same wall in 3 days. But you're not letting that mortar dry. The wall is not going to stay together in a very stable way. So if you can stack a brick every day, the wall is going to be a lot more stable. You're going to have this really firm foundation to remember everything. You're going to be able to apply that material because you've let that material really sink into your brain by just working on it for a little bit at a time and making sure you come back to it repeatedly. So, excellence is not an act, it is a habit, and it's really not glamorous. It's just important to be consistent. So, if you can remind yourself that consistency is more important than motivation, and you can actually sit down every day and just practice something for 30 minutes, you're probably going to do pretty well. Okay, now let's get into the what. What are we doing to study? Because a lot of people just read stuff, they review concepts, maybe they go back through their class notes or their modules. Does that really help? It's unclear. I mean, it depends on what you're doing, but oftentimes if you're just reading stuff back to be like, do I understand that? Okay, one time to make sure that you have the concepts really solid in your head, that can be useful. But if you're just repeatedly reading things, not useful. So we're going to think about right now reviewing old exams. So at the beginning of your studying for finals, you should be reviewing your old exams because this is what's going to help you figure out what needs the most work. You're going to know, okay, I got this thing right, I got this thing wrong. Making a list of topics that you're less familiar with, so like prioritizing those topics you don't know as well, that's very important. Studying what you've already mastered is a waste of time. You do not have the time to waste. So make this list of topics that you don't know as well. That's the priority. If you can get some practice tests in, that's wonderful. And that's a great way to just kind of reinforce those things you already know. You probably don't need to go too hard on those other things. Maybe you want to do a couple review problems or just like uh, review those flashcards a couple times to make sure you still know them just for your confidence, but you do not want to be spending extraneous time on those things. So at the beginning, to recap, at the beginning of a final study period, review your old exams. Then you want to set some study goals. So we recommend setting a study goal every day. So every single study session, every 30 minutes, or as we get closer to finals, longer than 30 minutes, or multiple 30-minute chunks in a day, all of them should have a goal. The goal should be determined ahead of time. So a good time to set your goal for a study session is when you finish the previous day. That's when you create the goal for the next day. So if it's Thursday and you finish studying, chemistry, let's say. At the end of the study session, you think about, okay, how far did I get today? Did I reach the goal that I wanted to reach? Now, what's the plan for tomorrow? How can I like continue this, useful study train, streak, whatever. What do I need to do tomorrow? And this way, you're kind of setting yourself up for success by, if you already have your when and your where for the studying for the next day, this is giving you the what. So when you wake up tomorrow, you're going to know exactly when and where you're studying chemistry and what your goal is for that day. It's amazingly helpful in just getting you to the desk to work on chemistry. So goals should be specific. They should be like working on problems from a particular section of the textbook. That is a good way to do it. Maybe if you're in chemistry, we'll continue with this, chemistry talk here. Maybe it's review gas laws, practice problems, because you're not super familiar with those. If you're in bio, maybe it's practice flashcards for evolution. That's a pretty big topic, but something like that. Maybe you've got a topic and you're like, this is what we're reviewing today. We're practicing this. We're making sure that we really understand all the concepts. Okay, so figuring out what to do every day. Let's continue on this. So for courses with problems, so like chemistry, math, physics, you should focus on practice problems when you study. This is what the test will look like. So this is what your practice should reflect. If at all possible, your studying and your practice should look like the test. So the best stimulus is to take a practice test because this gets your brain familiar with the format of the exam. It gets you comfortable with the time limit of the exam, understanding like, okay, is the exam multiple choice? Are these multiple choice questions? Yes. Okay. That's giving you just kind of the stimulus, the repeated stimulus in your brain if you get more than one practice exam. That's fantastic. It's also going to mix up the problems enough that you're doing what we call interleaved practice. So you're practicing all sorts of different types of problems instead of just focusing on one at a time. So practice problems should always be what you focus on, unless you're really, really having trouble with a concept, in which case you should have someone explain it to you if that's possible. And then you should try practice problems until you get them right. For courses with content, so like biology, spend your time understanding, memorizing, and explaining concepts. So we have to first understand a concept. You have to make sure that you understand every detail of something that you need to understand and know for the test. The next thing is to memorize the details of that thing, whether it's, let's say, osmosis. You need to first understand the procedure of osmosis, missing no steps. Then you need to memorize each one of those steps. And then you need to be able to explain the steps. And explaining the steps is going to make you understand whether or not you really understand it. Because if you're trying to explain it and there's something missing, especially if you're trying to explain it to someone who doesn't know all the biology terms you do. So let's say a roommate is like a psychology major and they've never taken biology 141 and that's what you're studying for. Try explaining it to your roommate. You're going to have to use words that your roommate understands because they don't have the biology vocabulary that you do. So that's going to help you understand if you completely get the concept. And if there are gaps in the understanding, they're going to be revealed when you try to explain it to your roommate. Okay, so here are some examples of study sessions. Let's take a look at some helpful strategies in a little bit more detail. Problems. Okay, so again, let's go back to chem here. Pick a topic to review today. Start doing practice problems where you can check your answers. Most of the time, your course will have some kind of related textbook where there are practice problems. You pay for that textbook. It's in the course materials initiative. You should use it as much as you can for whatever is helpful. Practice problems are usually a great way to do that. Most textbooks have a lot of practice problems throughout. Sometimes they're within the chapter, at the end of a chapter. Sometimes they're at the end of just a smaller section. You will figure this out. Most of the time, textbooks will have answer keys to like all the odd problems or all the even problems. Occasionally, they'll have answers to all the problems, which is wonderful. But they'll probably have answers to at least some of these questions. And now that textbooks are usually online and digital, you can usually just click, like there will be a hyperlink on the number if there is an answer in the back. So you just have to click on that hyperlink and then it'll take you to the answer key. Usually in the answer key, you just click on that number again and it takes you right back to that spot in the textbook. It's really amazing. So Make sure you're doing practice problems where you can check the answers, because if you don't know if you're getting the answers right and you're uncomfortable with a specific topic, you're not as, you're getting some problems wrong, or you need to review this because you got some of these problems wrong on a test, you need to make sure you're checking your answers. When you get one wrong, try to troubleshoot by working backwards from the correct answer. So when you first try to solve the problem, don't use any help. Don't use notes, don't use slides or the textbook or anything, modules, whatever you're using to learn the material. Don't Google it until you get it wrong. When you get it wrong, then you can use other material, use your notes, use the slides, the textbook, modules, whatever you're given. Try to work backwards from the correct answer to see where you went wrong. And like, if possible, like circle it maybe with a pen that's red or a different color so that you understand that's where you messed up. So then go back and do some more problems just like that and be very careful and attentive to the place where you messed up last time to see if you get it right the next time. And this is how you master something. It's understand the mistakes you're liable to make and in being careful and attentive to detail, especially with something like chemistry or math when you really have to be detail oriented to make sure that you're not missing a step. Okay, if you still can't figure out how to get the correct answer, put office hours, drop in tutoring, or SI pass on your schedule for later today or this week. It's very important to understand that you have to find the correct answer if you want to get that thing right on the exam. If you don't care about getting it right on the exam, by all means, do not find the correct answer. If you are getting a problem wrong or a type of problem wrong and you don't learn the correct answer and how to solve it now, you're not going to do that by the time the exam rolls around. So do it now. Make sure you understand um, how to do it early so that you can then practice it again and practice it in the correct way. There is a link to drop in tutoring in the description box. If you're watching this, not in the semester when this video is released, it's probably still going to work because the Academic Success Center has drop in tutoring every semester. Just scroll down to your class and find out when the hours are. If your class has SIPass and you've never been, check the syllabus. It's probably in there. There might be announcements about it in Blackboard. Office hours are also on the syllabus for the class. Okay, concepts like biology again, or any other class that you're trying to memorize stuff for, maybe that's not STEM. Pick a topic to review. Make flashcards. I suggest making them in Anki. Those are digital flashcards that give you spaced practice automatically by only asking you to continue memorizing the things that you're really unfamiliar with often, and then the things that you're more familiar with, it doesn't show you as often because that's kind of a waste of time. It's amazing the way that they do that. So you can use real flashcards, you can use Quizlet. Anki is absolutely the preferred method of making flashcards. It is free on your internet browser on your laptop. It's a program you download for free on the internet. You can keep all the flashcards you make. Um, I recommend making flashcards if you're in any concept-based class. Just after every single class, make flashcards. What did you learn in that class? What was important from the reading? What do you need to memorize? And actually rehearse those flashcards for 10 minutes a day. That's a really, really amazing way to kind of get that consistency in without doing a whole lot of extra work. And instead of like reading back your notes, you're actually creating a study aid for yourself where you can actually do active recall practice and not passive reading, which is not really that useful for studying. But you can start making flashcards now. That's a great way to review anything you need to memorize. If possible, put vocabulary into your own words when you're making flashcards or writing down notes, just because this will make it stick a little bit better in your head. Because your brain starts the encoding process when you actually kind of like turn over the text in your head and think to yourself, like, what does this mean? So if you try to intentionally shift a few words around, you're actually thinking about the syntax of the phrase and not just like writing stuff down. You can use previous exams to understand what material needs to be memorized. So look at your previous exams and look at like, okay, what are they actually asking me to do with all of this material? And how do I need to go about memorizing all of this stuff so that I can actually pull that out of my brain and then use it for application questions? You can check out learning objectives in slides or textbook. There should be learning objectives in at least one of those places. And make sure you have flashcards reflecting those learning objectives, because that is the literal objective of every class. That's what you need to come away knowing. So if you can explain every learning objective from memory because you've practiced them and memorized everything about them, you're going to be in pretty good shape for the test. And then practice your flashcards every day, not excessively, 10 minutes at a time. If you want to practice for 30 minutes a day, find 3 separate 10-minute segments in a day, because every time you stop doing something and give yourself like space of several hours at least in between study sessions, you're letting your brain absorb that material. It's going to forget some of the stuff, and then you come back to it, reinforce the material again. So spending 30 minutes at once is a lot worse than spending 10 minutes at 8 o'clock in the morning, 10 minutes at noon, and 10 minutes at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. But do what you need to do. um, More time is better than less time. So, if all you have is one 30-minute session, that's okay. All right. So, if you have a big assignment in a class, what do you do? So, oftentimes those big assignments, we procrastinate them because they take up a lot of space in our brain, and they're just kind of like it's hard to wrap your mind around even starting it because it's a big thing. This is just so bad for procrastination, and a lot of students end up pulling all-nighters for these classes that aren't even in their major because these are GEP classes and you have to either write a paper or do this project or whatever it is. Um, but it actually works so much better if you start that project from the day that you get it. Spend just 30 minutes working on that project, that essay, that assignment, whatever. Start at the beginning. Don't just start writing. If it needs research, start the research. Spend 30 minutes looking up sources on the first day. The next day, spend 30 minutes reading one of the sources. The next day, spend 30 minutes reading another source. Continue until the sources are all read. And then you want to start making an outline, formulating an argument, and then you start the writing process. And then eventually you edit. Maybe you go to the writing center. This can be broken down into 30 minutes a day, and you are going to feel so good. And you're going to be able to proofread that assignment, make sure it's really good, come back to it with fresh eyes every day and a fresh brain. That is amazing. It's going to make that assignment a lot better. It's going to stress you out way less. So, it's also just going to help you learn to break bigger projects up into smaller chunks. This is going to help your brain stop procrastinating. Let's say you want to be a lab researcher someday for your career. A one experiment that could take up an enormous amount of space in your brain, but it's made up of tiny little smaller chunks. And learning that you can break up a big thing into smaller pieces is going to help you so much just in your life for anything that you do in the future. So, again, this is going to train your brain to always stop procrastinating. If you know, well, that's not really a big deal. I can just do that for 30 minutes, and then I'll come back tomorrow and do it for another 30 minutes. It's really easy to do something for 30 minutes. But again, it's going to take consistency. It's going to take practice. You need to be putting these into your schedule if you actually want to do them. Intent is fine, but like if you intend to do something and you don't do it repeatedly, nothing is happening. So you need a plan. All right, top tip. Get together with others for study sessions during finals. This is an amazing thing to do. So it's a crucial exam study tip because it helps you to get answers for your questions, and then vice versa. You can sometimes be the one who answers the questions. Both of those things are going to make you a better student. Understanding a concept is obviously really important for getting that thing right on the test, but also explaining the concept to somebody who doesn't understand it, that makes you understand it way better. Just like I said earlier, explaining the concept to your roommate who doesn't understand biology. Well, maybe you're explaining this to somebody who does understand biology, but they don't get it. And so you're trying to help them find like what's the mental block for them. That is an amazing learning stimulus for you. And you're going to remember like 90% of what you taught them. So it's just a great thing to do. So just like your individual study sessions, set goals. So working through problems together or quizzing each other, those are great strategies. If you've got practice problems somewhere in your textbook, it's a great thing to work through those problems together. Okay, so that's all for now. Good luck with your finals. Good luck with preparing for your finals. Remember, consistency is more important than motivation. And please feel free to reach out with any questions to us at cnmsadvising@umbc.edu or on Instagram at cnmsadvising. Have a great one. And again, good luck on your finals.